Welcome to another episode of Voices. I'm your host, Keston Jones. Visionaries offering information with clarity, expertise, and substance. We are content experts. Let your voice be heard. We're back with another episode of Voices. Visionaries offering information with clarity, expertise, and substance. And today's guest is Miss Shawnee Benton Gibson. Thank you for being a part of the show. Before we hear from Shawnee, I want to read you her extensive bio so you can find out a little bit more about her and the work that she's doing. Shawnee Benton Gibson, licensed master social worker, is the co-founder and executive director of S.O.W. Leadership Development Institute. She is the author, inspirational speaker, master trainer, vision coach, performance artist, mother, and friend who has devoted her life to supporting individuals, groups, and institutions with elevating the outcomes in their personal and professional lives. Shawnee combines her professional training, her artistic abilities, and her intuitive gifts to provide holistic, nourishing workshop and training experiences to the clients that she is charged to serve and support. She is a graduate of NYU Silver School of Social Work and has over 25 years of experience in the areas of mental and emotional health and well-being, communication, meditation program, and leadership development, racial equity, social justice, and inclusion. Once again, thank you, Shawnee, for being a part of the show. Can you tell me more about your work and how did you get into the work that you're doing today?
Well, let me start with the beginning because that's really important. I was the child of two teenage parents. My mother had me when she was 15 years old, and as a result of her pregnancy and chemical imbalance, she ended up just in a really low vibrational space to the point where she wanted to take herself out of here. And so I say my first house was a war zone in the sense that her emotional state just wasn't conducive for my emotional and spiritual development. So I start there because it starts with my family. Like, there was a lot of substance abuse issues, mental health issues, and I was a witness to that. And since I was a child, I always wanted to be a doctor because I didn't have other language. So now I know it was really healer. And because I was able to persevere and move past some of the cyclical issues with my family, break the cycles and make other choices, I've been able to be a testament that you can choose differently as a woman, as a person of color, as a community member, as a family member, witnessing and dealing with that stuff. And I want to give back and create a space of transformation for those who I'm charged to work with and also those who help me to grow, because inside of the work, I heal and transform as well. And I'll say more about that, but that's why I do the work, because it's a form of giving back. And every time I support somebody in their healing, I get supported in my own. So it's just a blessing to be able to be chosen to do that. And I also feel like I was chosen for the family that I had, even though there was a lot of stuff going on that was traumatic and wounding. Without that story, I wouldn't be able to do my work effectively, I believe.
Well, one thing about me is I'm a testament to the power of your transformative work, having taken part in a number of workshops, presented with you in a few of them. So I certainly understand about the work and the importance of this work. But for a Black woman, someone who has been through a number of ups and downs, so to speak, why is it important for Black women to tell their stories about the loss of a child, intimate partner violence, loss, and all these various areas? Why is that important? And what can we do as far as people who are doing this work to help elevate spaces and provide spaces for Black women to tell those stories?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, women are the gateways of life. And Black women, I feel across the world, are under siege. And so it's really important for us to be able to express ourselves, because as the gatekeepers and the bearers of the seed, like, we need men, of course, to create that, but we hold the babies in space, hopefully for the entire term of the pregnancy, but sometimes not because of things that we're experiencing, mind, body, and spirit. But because we're those vessels, we need to be telling our stories and releasing the things that are traumatic, the things that are wounding, the things that are low vibrational that impact us. So if we're the principal teachers for the children, and we're supporters of the men that, you know, in a lot of cultures have most of the power and the capacity to make things happen or not happen, we need to be well so we can guide and direct them. And we also need to be well so we can teach our children so they can be powerful producers in the world, and not takers, but like have a reciprocal and a balanced exchange between us, between the children, and then between our mates, and then also the community at large. So women, as the gatekeepers, need to be well. And because we wield a lot of power, and even though in some societies it's diminished, I know for myself that when a woman is well and when she's healing, her entire clan heals as a result of her doing that work. So it's really imperative that we be talking and sharing and healing in concert with other women, and also with our men and with our young people as well.
So you mentioned healing, you mentioned empowerment, you mentioned, your bio training. What are some of the methods that you utilize in order to provide this training to various populations, whether it be individuals, whether it be groups, whether it be systems, agencies? What are some of the things that you utilize in order to be an effective healer?
Sure. So I have an eclectic approach to healing. You mentioned in my bio that I'm a licensed master social worker, and that's great. However, I know that the combination of that education as well as the spiritual education that I've had over the course of my life, and I'm not talking about like organized religion, even though I've been a part of that. I'm talking about just being open as a spiritual being, and being willing to use my intuition combined with my intellect, as the cognitive ability to support me in making powerful choices for myself first, and then being a model for that for my partners in healing, because that's how I view. People say clients, I say partners in healing, because it's a reciprocal exchange. Also, I'm a trained psychodramatist, so you mentioned that I'm a performance artist. So I love the fact that as a counselor, clinician, I got that training, and I'm also a performance artist. And then when I discovered that psychodrama would allow me to combine both things, I was blown away. And so I support people in enacting the things that they've experienced that may have created low vibration in their lives, and then creating a new narrative for themselves by moving through that process. So if you were abused by your parent when you were growing up, in psychodrama you get to confront your mother, confront your father. If you were, like myself, experienced sexual trauma, you get to confront, with the support of other, like group members, the person that did that damage to you, and you begin to heal yourself by talking to your smaller self and saying it's not your fault, or addressing the anger and rage that's maybe suppressed, and being able to, in a safe space, express that outwardly so that your body can balance out and heal, because we repress and suppress a lot of things. And so with healing art, with psychodrama, sociometry, which is the measure of connections, I'm able to support people with their healing and transformation. And I'm big on ritual, which is a lost art. Like, so I officiate weddings, I coach couples, I lead in the birthing process for babies and their families to prepare for the child to come. And so I love that I get to design ritual, because in communities of color, that's been, and more often than not, that's been taken away from us, and we've lost that aspect of our culture. So I try to inject that back in so that we can be doing things to intentionally and purposefully navigate the transitions, the rites of passages that we go through. So those combined with what I've been taught in school, I don't discount that, but it's a combination of those things that help me to be an effective healer and supporter for individuals, groups, and organizations and communities that I serve.
Absolutely. You mentioned the term low vibration.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about the term low vibration and what happens as a result of experiencing low vibration?
Yeah, I use that terminology as opposed to negative, positive, black, white, up and down. That's dichotomous thinking. And it's that type of thinking that has a person think that if this happened to me and that I was impacted and wounded by that, then that means I count myself out. I can never be this, that, or the other. That's that extreme thinking. But I have a mindset that there are situations that happen to you that are low vibrational. Like, for example, me experiencing trauma as a child. And even though it was low vibrational, it's all information, and it all has contributed to who I am. And without it, I wouldn't be sitting here with you today. Absolutely. And so there's high vibrational experiences, and there's low vibrational, and there's all the stuff in between. But all of it is fertilizer for you to be who you're called to be on the planet. And when we dismiss the low vibration and make it wrong, then we miss the opportunity to grow inside of it and outside of it. So that's why I use that terminology.
Absolutely. And speaking of opportunities, and for me, I'm one who takes advantage, positive advantage of opportunities that I can. And a few years ago, I had the opportunity to take part in a conference, a seminar, an event that you were having, and it was entitled the Motherhood Conference. And I want, if you can tell us more about the conference, and what inspired you to do this conference, what year you're on right now, and as someone who was a part of this conference, and in hearing you speak about the conference, one of the things you said, you wanted men and women to work together. Yeah. So what are some of the things that men and women can do to work together to better support communities, our children, our families?
Sure. So just the catalyst for the Motherhood Conference to be brought to fruition was my own personal experience with the low vibration of having a baby and then going through severe postpartum depression. First time it happened, I heard voices, and the voices were telling me to grab my baby and run with my baby. It only lasted for a couple of weeks, but it was so profound that I never forgot the sensation, like the visceral experience of that. Then I have my second child. Did not want to be pregnant. I had just had another baby, and I was young. I had my first child when I was 20, and so I'm like, oh, I'm pregnant again. And I was just unhappy, and then I was experiencing anxiety, like over being pregnant and not really being prepared to have another child, and just being away from family because my former husband was in the military and we were in North Carolina. So that happened, and it was really bad. My daughter came prematurely in the 7th month, and right after I just knew I wasn't myself, but it was not something that I would tell people. I had thoughts that this baby isn't mine. I had thoughts of harming myself, harming my baby, and I never spoke about it. And it's by the grace that I'm still here and she's here. She's now almost 30. And then I had my third child. There's another manifestation of postpartum, but different. So it can happen each time and be different every time. And so rather than keep that to myself, and especially as a clinician learning what happened to me once I got into school, I'm like, this is what occurred. I wanted to give back. And so I started talking to other women that had the condition, and I also spoke to my daughter where it was the most severe. And we're both artists, and we're both writers, and we're both healers. And so we came together and designed the Motherhood Conference, and we wrote an original piece, dramatic piece called Motherhood Echoes from the Womb, and we first performed it in 2012, and then I was like, I want to do more. And so we decided to make it a conference. So panel discussion, workshops, and then also artistic performance, because like I said, I believe in healing art as a mechanism for transforming people and having them become present to the things that are low vibrational that they've experienced, and recognize it's important to talk about it and use it as a way to launch them forward rather than keep them suppressed and blocked and stopped in their lives. So the Motherhood Conference, we're approaching the 6th year of the conference. So next May it will be 6 years that we're doing it, but the 7th iteration of it, because it started off with the play. And so people like yourself and other healers in the community, mainly people of color, because I don't know if you probably are aware, but women of color, brown and black women, particularly African American women and Puerto Rican women, die while giving birth, or experience complications and comorbidities that their white counterparts don't go through. So I think it's 12% likely that a woman of color, particularly African American women and Puerto Rican women, will have some type of issue giving birth, preterm labor or something that will place them and their child in jeopardy. So the conference is necessary, but it doesn't only deal with postpartum or preterm labor, it also deals with abortion, or what the world calls abortion. I use the terminology because I'm big on words, of releasing of pregnancies. You release the pregnancy. Abortion termination, I say, no offense, is a patriarchal terminology. I believe a man declared that, because I'm like, you're killing off something like that in itself. To be able to say it creates low vibration in you, and it makes you not want to talk about it. So it's anything that's like the darker side of reproductive journeys, and also infertility, because not everybody who wants to have a child is able to have that. So the conference is designed to have conversations about stuff that doesn't get talked about. Because a lot of people think that when you want to get pregnant, you can, or that everybody wants to and wants to be in a family, and that's not true. And that once you have a baby, all is well. That's not always true either. Yeah. And we need men to be in this conversation, because more often than not in the medical arena, men are at the helm making the choices about Black and brown bodies of women, and women in general, their bodies. And so it's necessary for brothers to be in the conversation, because we can't make babies without you. And sometimes men go through depression after a child, when a woman is pregnant or after a child is born, and they need to have a voice in the process, because we can't do this without you. The people in the world would not exist without men and women coming together to make that happen. So that's why you're needed.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the things that we need to also take into consideration is when a woman is unable to conceive, it's often that she's the catalyst,
yes.
she's the fault, it's
yes.
her fault. But some men suffer from low sperm count,
yes.
and this individual may be someone that is also contributing to this. So being more aware of what happens during the birthing process is something that I find to be something that we need to do. And thank you for inviting me to that conference.
Oh, yes.
And I had a wonderful time being a part of the discussions, and I would like to see more of that happen within our communities moving forward.
Yes.
So in conclusion, can you leave us with some final thoughts and also information about any upcoming projects that you have, and how can we get in contact with you
sure.
to hear more about the wonderful work that you're doing?
Thank you. So first and foremost, what I want to share for people to know and understand is that we're all here to live an ordained purpose. And when we experience low vibration, trauma, wounding, abandonment, like whatever the story is, and we don't work through that, then somehow, some way your purpose is not going to be activated. So I know when I get up every morning and I'm operating from the legacy of building a spirit of a woman, that some little girl in Guatemala or in Somaliland is going to be able to be activated in her purpose, because I believe in the butterfly effect. So I'm here to make sure that people live purpose-driven lives, that we're not just operating by default, that we're living purposefully and intentionally in our lives. So I get up every day with that in mind. And so this conversation, whether it's conversations on the train or the bus or out in the streets or in the bank, like I'm about the business of making sure that I drop seeds that will make a difference and will activate that purpose so that the world will be transformed. So that's my commitment. Upcoming projects, I'm along that lines of living my purpose. I'm traveling to Ghana in November so that I can work with an organization called Basics International. It's an educational organization that helps young people get their education in Accra, Ghana. And then one of my friends who I've known since I was a little girl runs that organization for the last 18 years. And then I'm also going to Somaliland in February to work at a clinic called the Edna Adan Clinic, which is a reproductive health clinic to help women in Somaliland give birth and actually survive. And you would think that people, like, of course she or they would survive, and that's not guaranteed with the the limited resources and some of the things that they experience as far as poor medical health. That being in this clinic will allow folks to actually come out, them fully whole and intact, and their babies fully whole and intact, and therefore their families fully whole and intact. So that's my commitment over the next 6 months to make a difference. And I will continue to do my rites of passage work with women, adult women, intergenerationally, so that women can be activated around their purpose. And so I'm in a current cohort right now, but the next cohort starts in March 2019, and I look forward to meeting the next group of women who are going to take that journey. So thank you for asking me about what I'm working on. And there's always something on the horizon, but those main things I wanted to talk about.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today.
Yes.
And in order to find out more about Shawnee, we will have her information within the description of this video. Please support her in her work. And again, this is Voices of Our Community, visionaries offering information with clarity, expertise, and substance. Thank you. Peace.